I'm Ernie Humphrey, Educational Programs Leader for Performative, the largest online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Mastering the Sales Forecast, Driving Growth and Delivering Predictability. Accurate forecasting strongly affects the financial health of an organization. The Office of the CFO is now an active partner in the development of sales forecasting strategy. To make matters more complex, the expectations of sales forecast accuracy have increased as new technologies and data capabilities have emerged. But more data does not automatically translate into better forecasts. To improve the accuracy of sales forecasting, companies need to build quality into the process. Today, our featured speaker, Mark Sellers, CEO and founder of Breakthrough Sales Performance, is going to enlighten us as to how finance leaders are collaborating with sales leaders in tackling this challenge to drive predictable growth. I would like to thank Host Analytics, whose commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible and delivered at no cost. A quick note on today's agenda. First, you'll hear a presentation from our featured speaker. Then we will move to the interactive Q&A session, where we will spend the remainder of our hour. We would like this to be an interactive experience for you. So, if you have any questions at any time, please go to the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel and send us your questions. A few logistical notes about the webinar. A link to today's presentation and video recording of the webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event. Those who would like CPE credits need to answer all polling questions during the event and should have pre-registered for CPE credit. For any CPE credit questions, please send an email to cpe@performative.com. Again, we encourage you to ask questions on today's topic via the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel at any time during the webinar. Finally, you'll be asked to take a short survey today regarding the webinar, and we greatly appreciate your feedback regarding the event as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for your valuable time. A quick word about Performative. Performative is the largest online community and resource for senior-level corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related leaders. Performative connects corporate finance leaders to provide instant advice and insights on the tough financial and strategic challenges they face every day. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our featured speaker, Mark Sellers. Mark Sellers is the CEO and founder of Breakthrough Sales Performance. Breakthrough is hired by companies around the world to get their sales teams to qualify better and faster, win more sales, and build healthier sales pipelines. Breakthrough accomplishes this by providing enterprise-wide sales training, coaching, and consulting services to clients such as Danaher, ITW, Bemis, Rona, West Pharmaceutical Services, and many more. Mark has created an innovative and unique sales method called Funnel Principle Selling and is the author of The Funnel Principle, a book named a top 10 best sales book to read by Selling Power magazine. Mark is a frequent blogger, keynote speaker, guest speaker for webinars, and contributor to sales industry mediums such as Selling Power magazine, Customer Think, and the American Business Journals. Mark has trained, coached, and consulted with over 10,000 people in his career. With that, it's my distinct pleasure to hand the floor to Mark. Mark, the floor is yours. Please take it away.
Thank you, Ernie, and thank you also to Performative, of course, for hosting today's webinar, and thank you to Host Analytics for being the sponsor. I appreciate that to both of you. And most of all, thank you to all of you who have taken the time not just to register today, but to take time out of your schedules to hear this message of mastering the sales forecast. I think you're going to get a lot of good stuff today that will answer some questions and maybe even create more questions for you as you tackle this pretty important topic. I want you all to know that I'm really excited about this event today because even though for the past 17 years I have sold our services primarily to the VP of Sales or otherwise Chief Sales Officer, more and more over the past 6 to 7 years as I have shifted the direction of my business to the sales funnel and the pipeline and doing a better job of managing that. Not to your surprise, we've been in front of CFOs, VPs of finance, just like many of you, and CEOs. So to have an exclusive audience of the finance suite here today is very exciting for me. Start with maybe today the biggest challenge that you CFOs, VPs of finance have when it comes to sales forecasting. I don't mean the weatherman. but I mean the VP of sales. So if we were to take the weather map behind this gentleman and replace it with a sales chart, and if we were to, timestamp it and say it's the end of the month or it's the end of the quarter and it's forecasting time, I have a sneaky suspicion that you might see this in your own company. Maybe it's an occasional reaction from the VP of sales when it's time to forecast. Maybe it's a routine reaction. They just don't know. And unfortunately, as you know better than anybody in the company, that is a problem. I mean, the forecast that is fed to you, you feed to your CEOs. And if you can't completely trust the information that you're getting from the VP of sales, it certainly makes your job a lot harder. It takes more time, and in fact, it puts your own credibility on the line. Now, I don't want to suggest that all of these paths of the challenge of sales forecasting lead to something regarding the vice president of sales. I don't mean that at all, but I do mean to suggest in this webinar today that it is one key piece of the puzzle. We have to put it in its proper place, and part of our agenda today is to give you some ways to collaborate with this very important person that plays a key role in your sales forecasting. Everybody is going to benefit from that, not just him or her and not just you, but the CEO and the entire company. We know that this forecasting topic, and now I'm going a little broader than sales forecasting, but the forecasting topic, you know better than anybody, it is serious business. In fact, I checked out some surveys and reports and studies that most of these are quite recent, 2014, and it seems as though the priority and the concerns are there with regards to forecasting. So these were done by a number of different types of outfits out there, but the storyline is it's a priority and it is a concern as well. We don't have to look far, right, to see what effect missed forecasts have on a company's business. And yeah, these are publicly traded companies, so the stock prices are taking a hit. And when you look at, the company that has the greatest market capitalization in the world, Apple, when they don't get it right, big things happen. So fortunately, we don't have to rely, and you don't have to rely on a bunch of folklore or gut feel or guessing to get this right. There are scientific ways to forecast better, and I'm not so much talking about better use of analytics, believe it or not, or better regression analyses, or using big data in the future, perhaps. I'm not talking about that right now. I'm actually talking about building quality into the front end of all of this. And the topic of sales forecasting, very specifically, the more we can build quality into something we'll call the sales funnel or the pipeline, which you are all probably familiar with, remarkably, we will see more accurate forecasts. And I'm going to show you the linkage between the accuracy of the sales funnel or pipeline and the accuracy of the forecasts. But I did want to reiterate that we're talking about sales forecasting today, not financial forecasting, not even demand forecasting, but very specifically the sales forecast. I also wanted to share with you that my experience over the past 17 years, although I've covered many different types of industries, I truly don't have an industry specialty, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. But the point is that my clients and my sales forecasting experience with them is with companies that sell products or services. They could have a direct sales force. They could have an indirect sales force, like a value-added reseller or some kind of a channel partner. They could have independent manufacturers reps, or they could even have any combination of those. So that's my world that I'm speaking to you from today. Okay. So where do we begin to tackle this topic? Well, there are 5 things that I think are very important for you to see that I want to share with you today, and then sort of a little bonus topic, if you will. So 5 things that I want to give you, the CFO, the VP of Finance, ways to improve the sales forecasting and to collaborate better with the people that are contributing to that. Let me go through these one by one briefly, and then, of course, I'll dive into them in much greater detail. So the first one is an accurate sales funnel. An accurate sales funnel absolutely drives an accurate sales forecast. There's a reason that this is the one that's listed first. It is key. It's a garbage in, garbage out kind of world we live in, and in sales it's no different, right? So when you think about where the sales forecast comes from, it should come from a company's pipeline or sales funnel. And I use those terms interchangeably. I should have said that earlier. Pipeline, funnel, I think of them as exactly the same for this conversation. That's where that sales forecast should be coming from. And if the funnel is accurate with information, then it only stands, all things being equal, we should have a more accurate sales forecast. On the other hand, if the funnel is a wreck, if it's full of outdated information that no one trusts, then is it no surprise that getting an accurate sales forecast is going to be very, very difficult. So that's number one, and we'll dive into that in just a second. Number two, we have to have a way to convert the sales funnel to the forecast. Just having an accurate sales funnel, yes, that's a good step in the right direction, but we still have to have a way to convert that sales funnel to the forecast, and I will show you how to do that. Number three, something called funnel audits. A funnel audit is a way to build quality into the sales forecasting process by building quality into the sales funnel. So it's almost like a spring cleaning, and I thought here, I live in Ohio, and we've had a pretty gnarly winter in lots of areas around the country, and all relative have had pretty gnarly winters. If you think of spring cleaning, if you think about cleaning out that garage, cleaning out that basement or whatever, once you get it clean, the real question you should ask yourself is, what are we going to do to keep it clean? Well, in my house, it's a pretty short answer. We don't do anything, and therefore it gets pretty gnarly looking, pretty soon. So the funnel audit is a way to keep the funnels accurate and clean every day, every week, every month, every quarter of the year. It's an inspection process. And yes, in fact, CFOs, I know CFOs who play a role in the funnel auditing process with salespeople. So it's a key thing that you can do to get involved, and it's a key thing even if you're not heavily involved in it, you really want to make sure it's happening within your companies. Number four, collaborating with sales. The more and more I read about the CFO suite, it's amazing how the role is evolving. The CFO is becoming so much more important in so many different ways in organizations for all the right reasons. Well, let's elevate the CFO's role with the sales function as well, and of course we're talking about sales forecasting and in funnel management. But you can't do this on your own, right? I mean, you are in somebody else's business, the VP of sales. But if you approach this the right way, and if you have some support of you-know-who, probably, the CEO of your company, then it's going to be much easier for you to be involved and make a contribution and work together with the VP of sales. I mean, even if you wield a big political stick in your company, you know that getting buy-in is a lot better than bullying people. So we got to give you some ways to collaborate with your VP of sales, and I will give you some ideas for doing that today. Number five, driving sales growth. What's interesting about this topic, most of the people in the world of sales, I mean all the way up to the VP's CSO level of sales, it's not commonly thought of as a tool to drive growth, but it is. The sales funnel, the pipeline is absolutely a tool to drive growth. Now, there have to be certain things to make that happen, but the funnel can be a great tool enterprise-wide to drive growth and sales in your company. So we need to touch on that a little bit today, even though it's not the main point of our topic. So I will touch on that. And then finally, number 6, 5 common sales forecast killers. Man, that sounds really harsh, but you know, it is. So these are the key agenda topics that I'm going to cover today. But get to our first topic. Have an accurate sales forecast. It really, really helps to have an accurate sales funnel. Why is that so darned important? Well, if we take a page out of the book of Lean, and I would probably guess that, you know, 75, 80, maybe even more percent of you all listening are quite familiar with the Lean business philosophies, made very popular by the Toyota production system, of course. It is the way they do business throughout every aspect of the company. Very, very impressive. So if you take a page out of Lean, we want to go to root cause. You know, why are the less than 75% accurate? Why did 28% of you respond to that? What's happening? Okay, so we got to trace that back to probably something to do with an inaccurate sales funnel. If we think for just a second, the job of a salesperson, so when we see this page, this slide right here, the job of a salesperson, if they're going to report out to a manager, let alone to the VP of sales, report out on what they're doing, it would sound something like this. Okay, I'm working on these deals, and then these deals are ones where the customer, I believe, is ready to buy. But then I've got some other deals here where I think the customer is actually going to buy from us. Okay? From a forecasting standpoint, that's really what a funnel looks like reported out on by any given salesperson. Okay? So far, so good. Here's the problem with this. Without really clear definitions, let alone standard work for reporting out, there is way, way too much for error, for variation in everything we hear the salesperson tell us. Okay? So in other words, think of the worst scenario where every salesperson has his or her own way of defining these are the deals I'm working on, and this is how I'm going to describe them. And this is why I think the customer is ready to buy from somebody, and this is why I think the customer is going to buy from us. With individual definitions of those, it doesn't take long to realize you've got a real mess on your hands, right? So Mary might sandbag, Johnny in Territory 101 thinks pie in the sky and everything's great, and it just makes the job of the sales manager, let alone everybody downstream getting this information, just about impossible, okay? So what we've got to do is we have to create some very clear definitions and standards, if you will, of how the salesperson reports out on his or her sales funnel. I love this quote. I had an opportunity to meet Andy Mattis when he was the head of Hewlett-Packard's Technology Solutions Group in 2008. I saw him speak at the SAMA meeting, and in a 45-minute keynote, he said the word sales funnel 17 times. Now, this was a strategic account conference, and he mentioned sales funnel. So I went up to him and had a great conversation. He's now the CEO of Diebold in Canton, Ohio, but he did say this, that he believes it's a breach of fiduciary responsibility. So this is how important some CEOs consider this funnel data, and it is largely because they know how much it feeds the forecast. So it's very important. To make matters worse, when you have all these individualized definitions of the deals they're working on and why I think this one's going to close and why I think this one's at stage such and such, let's face it, salespeople often have the rose-colored glasses on, they have their happy ears, and it only complicates things. So we got a lot of things working against us in terms of trying to get the sales forecasts accurate. But we have a very, very good solution on this slide right here. So this happens to be our bicycle funnel, and it is kind of the new standard of how sales funnels should be defined. So that's why I use it and present it to you today. So what we're trying to do, again, is to limit the error and the variation in funnel accuracy so that we can have more accurate funnels and we can therefore have more accurate sales forecasts. Let me give you a very, very quick primer on the sales funnel. this is important given how important it is that the funnel is linked to the sales forecast. So let me take it from the top. Salespeople are going to fill their funnel with leads, right? And despite what some people say, we're going to work those leads through the process, and we do hope that some of those leads come out the bottom as an order. Hopefully it's a lot more than hope. It's hard work and good strategic selling and all that good stuff. But what makes this process of filling the funnel, working the deals through stage by stage, and then reporting out on what I'm doing with regards to my funnel, what really makes that work is having those stages. But having those stages defined by the customer buying process. It sounds so simple, but for years, forever, until about 2007, 2008, when we launched this model at the Sales 2.0 conference in San Francisco, every funnel in the world was defined not by the customer stages, but by the salesperson stages. And I won't go into why that was a problem into detail, but I've already suggested what we need to do is to recognize that when a customer buys, it is a buying process they go through, not a selling process. Therefore, if we're to describe the deals stage by stage where they are in likelihood of becoming an order, the most accurate way of describing those deals is by using the customer stages or the customer milestones to do so. So at the top, in the red portion, it's a problem is recognized by the customer. In stage 3, we have this thing called commit funding or commit to change, which is a big deal. And stage 4, they start to define what the solution should look like, and on and on and on. And down at the bottom, stage 7, bingo, we have a sale. So when we talk about deals at being at stage 2, we now have a way to say, oh, that means that the customer has only committed to certain things that we know. As opposed to a deal at stage 4 or 5, we know the customer has committed to a lot more things because we've defined that. So it's very critical to have this sort of framework simply as a way to talk about deals, but more importantly, as a way to put them where they belong, and then use that information to say some of those deals are likely to be forecastable. Okay? So what we're doing is building quality into the thing that we're going to draw the forecast from, right? Now, I'll stop for a second because as so important as this is, it's still garbage in, garbage out. So if salespeople don't constantly do this well, and if they aren't constantly inspected by people like their managers and even the CFO, then guess what happens? They fall into bad habits. And this is my world, right, of trying to get them from falling into those bad habits. But it happens, even to the best salespeople around. So we have to have a way to fix that, and we will. But anyway, for now, really key, sales funnel drives sales forecasts. Why? Because we have a way to identify where the deals are. We have to define those things by the customer stages, and then we'll find out that some of those stages are going to be much more forecastable than other stages, which is something we'll get to in just a second. So now that we have an accurate sales funnel, and we know the importance of having an accurate sales funnel to deliver an accurate sales forecast, how do we actually convert an accurate sales funnel to forecast? Well, this is how we do it. We first start off by forecasting, by deal. In other words, what I want to suggest is that the most accurate way to forecast is to literally look at every deal and say, tell me why that deal you expect it to close, in this forecastable period, whether, let's just say it's 30 days, just for the sake of an example. Tell me why that deal is. And companies that do this well can even have a short cheat sheet or list of things that they have to hear in order for everyone around who's listening to say, yep, I agree, that should go in the forecast, okay? So that's really the first step, forecast by deal. Forecasting by stage is important too, because let's face it, we don't have to go back to that funnel model, but if you think about a stage 2 deal on a funnel that has 6 stages, you don't even have to think about it to realize that a stage 2 deal probably has a long way to go still to become a sale, right? And it may be unrealistic to think that consistently we can forecast stage 2 deals. Well, let me throw another stage in there that might be unrealistic to forecast. Stage 3 deals, and maybe even stage 4 deals. So what I'm saying is we then want to think of the stage. We want to go to some common stages to say that's where we're most likely to draw our sales forecast from. So what are those stages? So no surprise to all of you probably, it's the late stages. It's the stage 5, the stage 6, if you will, that we have to consistently look at to be forecastable. You know, again, if you have deals that are at stage 2 or stage 3, 4, they have such a long distance yet to go for us to consistently think they might be forecastable. Now, that said, what's important about forecasting by deal is that every deal is different, and there's nothing magical about a stage definition that will guarantee that deals at that stage deserve to be in the forecast. I'll give you an example. You can get a deal to stage 5, and everybody can say, yes, that is in fact a stage 5 deal, but we don't have any chance at all at winning that deal because of 3 very clear reasons, and they could list those 3, and everybody could say, yes, I agree with that. Okay, so let's not forecast it because we don't think it's going to happen. On the other hand, I might have even a stage 3 deal where I not just feel good, okay, let's get that out of the way, but I have a documented, validated way to say, here's why we are very well positioned with this deal right now. I can give you, whatever, go down our checklist or give you these 3 validated reasons, okay? So that's why it's important that we forecast by deal as well as taking a look at by stage, okay? So we've got an accurate funnel that feeds an accurate sales forecast. We have to forecast by deals and by stage. So how do we keep this thing clean throughout the year? Well, it's these funnel audits that I mentioned to you just a second ago. So the funnel audit is an inspection of the funnel. It's not an inspection necessarily at a global level of the funnel, but rather it's an inspection at the territory level. Mary in Territory 101 needs to do a funnel audit on a regular basis. Johnny in Territory 102 needs to do the same thing. And this is typically done, with my clients, it's typically done once a month. And then we send them off during these, after these funnel audits, we send them off to execute their 30-day funnel plan, okay? So then 30 days later they come back and we inspect the funnel again because, no surprise, even with long sales cycles, every 30 days that goes by, you're likely to see the funnel be even a little different. Deals may have moved down stages. Deals may have been lost. Deals may have become closed pieces of business. The salesperson may have added sales opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So we do this funnel inspection, and we keep that salesperson honest in reporting out on what his or her funnel looks like. Again, we build quality into the thing that feeds the sales forecast, okay? Very, very important. In fact, our next slide, just a quick hit slide, I want you to think of this whole process as building quality into it as opposed to trying to inspect quality down the road, okay? So if, for example, in terms of this inspection process, what we want to make sure is that the salesperson is correctly placing the opportunities where they belong, right? So if she says, I have these deals at stage 1, then the inspection process basically challenges her to show us why those deals meet the stage 1 definition. I have these deals at stage 2. Again, let's use the inspection process to confirm, validate those deals do meet the stage 2 definition and criteria. Stage 4, same thing. Stage 5, same thing. If we're having that conversation on a regular basis, again, as the funnels, territory by territory, are changing, excuse me, then don't we feel so much better about the quality of the funnel? And then we should be feeling a lot better about our ability to deliver consistent and accurate sales forecasts. So again, funnel audits, they're key. They're the more than spring cleaning exercise. They're the ongoing cleansing, resetting, balancing, whatever you want to describe it, kind of process that happens at the territory level. And I did mention the CFO friend of mine who actually, in transforming her company's funnel process, she actually participated in her equivalent of funnel audits. I have to admit that I don't have a lot of CEOs that do that. I have some. And although I've recommended to all of them what a great idea it is, but they're busy people. So if it's something you can participate in, I so highly recommend you've been able to do that. Okay, so bullet number 4, collaboration. Collaboration, this is a change management initiative. Everything I've learned over 17 years of being hired by companies to help their sales performance, to grow the top line, build healthier pipelines, et cetera, it's really a change management initiative. And even when it's just the sales group that's bringing me in, inevitably we have to interact with customer service, business development. We interact with marketing. We interact with technical support, sales engineers, and yes, we interact with CFOs and even others. So collaboration is just it's not optional anymore in most companies, as it should be. So the challenge that you have is perhaps in honestly the credibility, right? Having a VP of sales look at you and say, what can you, CFO, VP Finance, bring to my challenge of sales forecasting? And it's a legitimate question. I wouldn't run from that. I would acknowledge it, and then I would address it. But right away, when the sales VP suggests that the sales forecasting function is entirely his, that's an issue, right? And again, you might need some air cover from your CEO to say, look, we all agree that sales forecasting is a pretty important enterprise-wide business function. We agree that sales contributes a big part of that, but finance contributes a big part of that. So can you two and even me, CEO, get together and come up with a way to do this? Again, you get a guy like Andy Mattis at Diebold, Mark Hurd, who was the former CEO of HP, same thing. These very, very high senior officers saying, we need this stuff to be right. And we know where it comes from. It comes from the accuracy of our sales funnel. So again, collaboration just is not an option. So how can we do this? Well, as I've just been suggesting, get some help from your CEO. Try to suggest to the CEO, maybe there's a change management initiative. Maybe there's a lean-based, Six Sigma-based initiative to try to improve the accuracy of the sales forecasts. And maybe that extends, as it should, to the integrity and the accuracy of the sales funnel. Any eager, curious VP of sales who wants to continue to learn should embrace that opportunity. I would reach out to the VP of sales and together discuss defining a process that has visibility to it. Again, taking another page out of the lean book. If you can't see it, it's hard to do anything about it. So a lot of companies, a lot of sales organizations have visual management, i.e. their CRM, right? They got fancy reports and pie charts, and they can do a trend analysis and everything else. And that's a very, very good step in the right direction. But it's still garbage in, garbage out. What really needs to happen is to identify a process that builds quality into what is visible. And that's something that maybe you've been through these kinds of initiatives much more than the VP of sales, and maybe that's the unique thing you can bring to the table. So I think you should also encourage transparency, which I can tell you right now, and maybe don't have to tell you, this could be very difficult. I'd like to say that my constituents in sales would welcome transparency and everything all the way up to the VP of sales, but it's really not true. I know lots of VPs of sales who love that they can hide behind things that others do not fully understand. When you don't know the questions to ask, when the CEO doesn't have the questions to ask. When there's no visibility to the process, it's harder to ask the smart questions. A VP of sales can hide. And again, that's just not a world-class way to run a business. And then finally, maybe through the event of CRM. If you are transforming your CRM, you're getting new CRM, these are always little trigger event kind of things that, oh, by the way, maybe this is a good time for us to really evaluate our processes for managing our pipeline and our processes for managing our sales forecast. So maybe that's something that you can piggyback on, okay? So collaboration, obviously, again, not an optional thing, very, very important, and that's why we stress it in everything we do with our clients. So we have two more categories, driving sales growth. A lot of meat on this bone, and I don't mean for it to get short shrift here towards the end, but probably won't get as much time. But just a quick couple of comments. Again, think of the sales funnels that you have as being key tools and key processes to drive sales growth. Law of intention. When you focus on something, it's going to get scrutinized. It's easier for you to know what is working, what is not working. It's better for you to get to root cause, countermeasure, all that stuff. So just simply focusing on the sales funnel, if you don't already, is a very good step in the right direction. The sales funnel is all about net new sales. It's not a funnel of accounts. It's a funnel of net new sales, whether those are with existing customers, big accounts, small accounts, little accounts, fast sales cycles, long sales cycles, doesn't matter. They're all the same. They all have to have a funnel of sales opportunities, net new sales. So if you don't have that and you don't have the rigor around it, again, probably a place to start to improve your sales forecasting accuracy. When you have something like a funnel process, probably the thing that is really obvious to all of you is how it drives accountability. Again, there's no place to hide. I'll be honest with you, the people that really are not enamored with what I bring to them are the salespeople, because they're independent, they do things the way they want to do them, and honestly, it exposes everything. So the CEOs and the CFOs love what we bring to this, and even some VPs of sales are not crazy about it. Everybody's much more accountable when you have this kind of transparency and visibility to your process. Think of it as driving out waste. If we build quality into how we sell, we are in fact driving out waste. And I don't think a lot of VPs of sales come at it that way. Some do, to their credit. Building quality into selling, building quality into the forecasting process, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great tool that feeds your sales forecast, but you got to have ways to build quality into it in order to have good data to be forecasting. 5 deadly mistakes that you definitely want to avoid. Number 1, for you to not be involved. Please, please find some ways to insert yourself from a very productive, abundance mentality kind of way. Get help where you need it when you've got really tough VPs of sales who don't want you to be involved, but you have to be involved. And I think, I hope I've given you some ways to think about how you can be involved, where you can be involved, and even how you can do it. Limited visibility is a killer. I mean, again, what you can't see, you can't do anything about. And so getting transparency to your forecasting process starts with having transparency, visibility to your sales funnel process. Good things are going to happen. Forecasting by stage only, not recommended. Again, I use the example, a stage 5 deal, I could tell you why, validate why I don't think we're going to win this deal. On the other hand, I can show you other stage 5 deals or stage 6 deals that I can validate, not feel good, but can validate, check this box, check this one, check that one, why we are likely to win this deal. So make sure you're forecasting by deal and by stage, not just by stage. When there's no accountability, hey, I don't know that there's anything else that needs to be said about that. I'm suggesting accountability through all of these different measures. And then having a weak inspection process. let's face it, one of the pitfalls of sales training is there's so much emphasis on the training event. It happens at the national sales meeting. It happens in the regional breakouts, whatever. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, and nothing else happens. Well, I clean out my garage, I clean out my basement in April, and I can tell you what it looks like pretty close to the 1st of May if I'm not cognizant of, trying to keep it clean. Same thing with our funnels. We've got to have these inspection processes to keep the funnels accurate because they feed the sales forecast. Okay? So that, I believe, brings us close to the end. Both Host Analytics and Performative asked me to very briefly provide you with my information, so we will briefly provide it. There it is. Just think funnel principle. If you forget numbers, and you can Google and find us, and we'd love to hear from you. And thank you very much. Thank you all for joining today. I hope you got a lot out of it. I'm looking forward to some questions you might have.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mark. Our next question, we have someone who's a CFO who doesn't think the VP of Sales will take them seriously if they suggest ways to design the funnel and set the forecast process. Do you have any suggestions for them?
Have a tough skin, number one. Be prepared, right? Because I would expect it to be likely to happen. And so what I would do is, I think, a good place to start is what do we all agree on as opposed to what do we disagree on, right? And we could probably all agree on the need to have an accurate sales forecast. And we could probably all then let's agree on, well, where does that forecast come from? Well, now you're armed with some more information to know why and how it comes from the sales funnel. And if you believe that the sales funnel process that your VP is using is not as good as it needs to be, then in a very productive way, that needs to be exposed and discussed because it does feed the accuracy of the sales forecast, right? So, focus on what we all agree on. We're all trying to get better. No one's pointing fingers. Look at studies, pull down some articles, even grab a book or two, and maybe try to educate the VP of Sales on process and how processes like Six Sigma lean processes are being applied to the sales function, and then throw the forecasting conversation maybe in with that discussion. I might give that a try.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mark. Next question is asking if you look at forecasting variances in the absolute, this person has their net variances are acceptable, but the individual variances can be erratic, and then maybe also if you could speak to the variances. I don't know if you forecast by stages what that means and looks like.
So we're talking about variances. Individual variances, and then a sort of a collective level of variance. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, we add up all of those individuals who carry funnels, those salespeople, those territories. We add them all up, and we ask them to tell us through their managers, right? What do we think is going to forecast today, or excuse me, this month, this quarter, whatever. Every manager is still going to collect all that data and then want to probably do a little bit of a workaround and put some kind of a factor on it, based upon what he or she knows about the team. Every sales manager is going to do that. So, the good news about that is in the hands of a very, very competent sales manager, they can actually get it right. I won't deny that. They know their people, and they know who sandbags and who overestimates things, and they just have a knack of getting that right. The problem is what happens when that person leaves. It's not a scalable process, so it's not something for the long term that we can build a business on, right? And then so that would be one. I think the other thing, speaking to the individual variances, I think this isn't the primary function of the CFO, but what we want to do is we want those individual salespeople, if there are large variances, we want them to get better and better at selling. And the reason that they have large variances, or I should say one of the symptoms of the large variances, they're not doing something right. They're not asking the right questions to properly place an opportunity where it belongs. Or they're not moving these deals along in a very methodical kind of way. So they need selling help, probably. So I would say that, if it's a spot thing, that you can probably work through it. But if it's something that multiple salespeople in multiple regions are suffering from, then the sales manager is going to have to fix that. And then the final thing I'll say is, again, the need for a customer buying process-based funnel model. It is the absolute standard today, and not just because I say so, but if you ask the big email marketing campaign companies like Eloqua, like Marketo, smaller companies, Marketing Sherpa, one of the first things they will ask new clients is, do you know how your customers buy from you? In other words, do you know the stages, the milestones of how your customers buy from you? It's the first thing they ask them. And if they go, I'm not sure, they go, okay, we know where to begin our work. So it's that important to everything. Using those customer-based stages is so important. That's probably an area, again, I'm not sure the sophistication of all of you out there. You may have some very sophisticated VPs of sales who already get that. Their funnels are already defined by the customer buying process stages, and you are off to the races. Now, again, that's not a guarantee of good data. You have to have those funnel inspections, even if your funnels are designed the right way. So you need the funnel designed the right way to avoid the variances, and you need the funnel inspections to limit or avoid the variances.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. I have time for a few more questions here. Someone is conveying that their funnel process is Salesforce.com. They're wondering why they need something more than that.
Okay, great question. It's a great question because it's something that it's probably the most common situation out there when in the topic of sales funnel management and sales forecasting. Companies have spent a lot of money on any system, not just the 800-pound gorilla of Salesforce.com. Great product, but it's not, it's not intended to read salespeople's minds, right? It's still garbage in, garbage out. I call the CRM stuff the technology of this whole sales funnel project, if you will, and I call the process things like the stages and the funnel inspections and the conversations that go on between manager and rep and the involvement of CFO and the forecasting, all that stuff. I call that sort of the process. So what I'll say is you can't use a technology solution, i.e. the CRM, to fix a process problem. So this is why, CEOs or others who don't get it, unfortunately, they scratch their heads after having authorized a $150K spend for the CRM, and 3 months later, 6 months later, the data still is not good. And she's going like, what the heck's the problem? The problem is the process. Probably something related to the funnel design, probably something related to funnel inspections, and and the conversation that it is or is not having between the manager and the salesperson to make sure those funnels are accurate. Probably something related to how they convert sales funnel to the forecast. Probably something related to CFOs not being involved as they should be. So the CRMs are great repositories of your funnel data. They are not intended. They are not designed to increase the integrity of the funnel data. That is still and will always be a manual process, i.e. Johnny in Territory 101 has to put that sales opportunity on the right stage. We can have that stage defined, but Johnny still has, and Johnny can be trained in it and how to do that. Johnny still has to put that deal where it belongs, and some of you may be shaking your head saying, is it really that hard? And you know what? It is that hard sometimes, but it's even harder when you don't have good processes in place to manage from.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mark. We have time for one more question. Someone has said they had very little in place at this point, process for the funnel and forecasting. Where would you suggest they begin?
Yeah, great. So to clarify, you said there's very little process stuff in place. Where do they begin?
That's correct.
Okay. So, I think like a lot of places, I would begin with the problem. Find root cause. Honestly, if there is no problem, then making somebody change something and how they do it, let alone buy stuff, whether it's services, products, whatever. Good luck with that, right? So I would go to root cause. What is our problem with regards to our sales forecasting, with regards to our sales funnel? Why do we think that, or why do we know that is a problem? What's causing this? Is it something we're doing? Is it something we're not doing? The CFO could do a little intelligence gathering at first, and then maybe ping the VP of sales and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about something. And maybe you just kind of get the ball rolling and you get the VP of sales perspective. Again, no pointing fingers. No, I got the solution. I heard this guy on a webinar and I know exactly what we need to do. No, don't go there. Don't do that. Engage those people. Collaborate with them in defining what the problem is. And then I think, honestly, that's probably the hardest thing. Get them to agree that it could be better. Get them to agree that you, CFO, VP Finance, can play a key role. And honestly, I think it'll be easy from that point forward. So good luck to all of you. Thanks again so much for all of you attending, and good luck with this topic.
Oh, thank you very much, Mark. That'll conclude the Q&A session. We'll try and coordinate with Mark in getting the questions answered that we didn't get to during the webinar today. A big thank you to Mark for his time and insights. He's clearly a thought leader in his field and an excellent source of information on today's topic. Note in the post-webinar survey, you'll have the opportunity to express your interest in being connected with Mark and or our sponsor, Host Analytics, with just a few mouse clicks. Again, a big thank you to our sponsor, Host Analytics, whose commitment to thought leadership helped us make this webinar possible today. A thank you to the audience for your valuable time. We hope to see you again at another Performative webinar or online at www.performative.com. Make the rest of your day great, everyone. Thank you very much.